Hey everyone, it is Michelle from C Code, and we are back and we are going to be building today. So today is not just going to be me talking about theory. Today we're going to actually look at code and what are we going to build? Today we are about to build using Terraform. We're going to create an S3 bucket in AWS. So by the end of this video, you will know what Terraform is. You will have an understanding of what infrastructure as code is, and you also will know how to use Terraform modules to build out an S3 bucket inside AWS. So let's get going. Okay, so in order for us to actually even understand what Terraform is, we first need to start off with what is infrastructure as code. And infrastructure as code is really just a tool that allows you to get the desired state of the environment that you want. And then so for us, it means we're going to describe the cloud setup that we want, and Terraform is going to build that for us in AWS automatically. I also do want to say that Terraform works across like different cloud platforms, but because it's me, y'all know we're going to use AWS. So Terraform allows engineers to describe the ideal state that they want the cloud to be in, like their services and tools in the cloud that they want. So instead of me going into AWS and saying, I want 3 S3 buckets, each one's going to be called this, or I want 3 servers that will do XYZ, I will just write that in Terraform and allow Terraform to do it all for me. This is really helpful because it gets rid of that manual human error. Because what if I say, we're going to both set up the same server and we're gonna make sure it has these different specifications, but you accidentally make, let's say, a T3 large server and I do like a something micro, I don't remember the exact ones, but like we end up doing 2 different ones, and it wasn't on purpose, but it was just by mistake. But now we're like, oh, well, why isn't this working? Or why are you using way more resources than why does yours cost more? We could kind of just avoid all of that by saying, hey, let's just deploy using our Terraform files. So for us, we are going to create a module in Terraform that's going to create a single S3 bucket. It's going to have tags, it's going to have versioning, and it's going to have lifecycle protection. So the tags will help track the cost, versioning will help track old files, and the lifecycle block prevents accidental deletion. So the first thing we're going to do is on our command line is we are going to organize our files. The first thing we need to do is create an actual directory. I'm going to call my directory Terraform practice. And inside that, I'm going to have a main.tf, output.tf, and a variables.tf. I will also create a directory that will then be called modules. I will go and cd into that modules. And if you don't know what cd, ll, all these commands are, make sure you head to both my TikTok and my YouTubes, where you're going to be looking at like the top commands, my YouTube shorts, to tell you the top bash commands. So I'm going to cd into that directory modules. I will then create another directory let's call it S3 practice or S3 bucket or something. And inside there, I will create the same files. I will create main.tf, variables.tf, and then outputs.tf. So just for some background, the main.tf is, think of it like the brain of the Terraform files. So it tells Terraform what providers we're using, like AWS. The root main.tf also tells Terraform what modules to call. And then the main.tf inside the modules define the resources. It says what resources, everything we're going to be creating. So it is the brain of the overall Terraform files that we're writing. So our root.main.tf is actually going to be very simple. It's honestly just going to have the providers. It tells Terraform our AWS provider required. It tells version. And then for me, it also has the region as a variable, and it has my AWS profile as a variable because I have multiple AWS profiles. And then the next thing it will do is it will call the module for the S3 bucket. So we're going to do it this way because in another video later on, or just another time as you do your project, you may want to create another module, let's say, to build an EC2 instance, and we can use this same main.tf to call that module so that we don't have to create like another one. So it will call our S3 bucket module. And so now we're going to go into the S3 bucket and we will work on creating that Terraform file. So in our main.tf, in the root directory, it uses something called providers. A provider tells Terraform which cloud or platform to talk to. Each provider exposes resources for AWS. That means like AWS S3 bucket, which you'll see that we call that resource in the S3 bucket module, and etc. So in the provider section, I also do tell it to say what region I'm in and then what AWS profile, as I mentioned before, that I have multiple profiles. So I want to make sure it's using the right one. So our variable files are what keeps things clean. So you see how I say var.aws region or var.aws profile. That's because I don't want to hard code what region I'm going to be in, because what if later on I want to change it, or somebody else needs to use it and they're going to be using a different one. So instead, I will put all that information in the variable file. So that way, if that does need to be changed, I will just only change the variable file. Okay, so now we are in our S3 buckets main.tf. So we're in the module S3 bucket and we're in the main.tf file. In here, we define 3 different resources that need to be created. And I'm going to explain to you what a resource is. So a resource is the actual thing that Terraform is creating. It's a bucket, a server, a database, whatever you're asking Terraform to create, you would ask it in that resource. So for us, we have 3 resources in this main.tf. And the first one is AWS S3 bucket. So I'm telling Terraform, create an S3 bucket and name it whatever I pass through the variable. So you'll see that we have this AWS S3 bucket. We have bucket is equal to var.bucket name. So that's where it's going to grab the name. So we have our tags. Then we have also something called a lifecycle. This lifecycle block lets us protect critical resources from being accidentally destroyed. So we then have this resource that's called AWS S3 bucket public block. Ugh, that's a mouthful. Okay, so we have that resource. This resource is to block all public access to this bucket. It's recommended by AWS. It ensures that no one can accidentally make your bucket public, because you're the one putting that information or whatever's going to be inside that bucket. So we have this last resource here, which is our AWS S3 bucket versioning, and this is just versioning to help restore old files. Okay, so let's review again what we have in this main.tf inside our module for S3 bucket. We have our AWS S3 bucket resource. We have our AWS S3 bucket public access block resource. And then lastly, we have our AWS S3 bucket versioning resource. So we have 3 resources that we are going to ask Terraform to create for us. So we have created some variables inside that main.tf in that S3 bucket. And right now you probably have some squiggly lines because those variables don't even exist yet. So it's like not defined, etc. So inside our variables.tf, inside the module's S3 bucket, we are going to create these variables. So we need variable bucket name, and each variable will have a description and the type. So you will say for bucket name, we can say the name of the S3 bucket and the type is a string. The variables for environment will have a description, type, and then you can also put the default. And then enable versioning, and then we have a variable for prevent destroy. It is going to be defaulted at false because prevent destroy equals true means Terraform will refuse to delete the bucket. It's not going to destroy. So this is set to true if you want it to prevent accidental deletion. We are going to set it to false. I say this because this is a dev environment, so we can destroy as much as we want. So right now it's going to be false. So if we did a Terraform destroy, we actually would destroy and delete the stuff we want. But if you want it to be true, like for stuff that you don't want somebody to accidentally delete, you would then make that default to true. So the output file is honestly Terraform's way of just printing out any useful information after deployment. So for us, we are just going to output the bucket name and output the bucket ARN. So it's just useful information that might be you might need to grab later on. So you'll notice in my variables.tf in the S3 bucket that I didn't actually put the defaults there, like the bucket name and etc. You don't need the defaults there. The defaults will be at the variables.tf in the root directory. So there you'll see, okay, the AWS region, you have the description, the type, and then I'm going to say default US East 1. And then the profile, C code, the bucket name, C code Terraform practice. And so these are where the actual variables are going to be, the default values are going to be. So when I need to change things, I'll change it at this level. Ignore the fact that I had some defaults in the module level. Ignore that. The defaults will only put your defaults here at this top level, okay? Do as I say, not as I do. Okay, and now we are back at the main.tf. And I kept talking about modules, and I want you to really think about modules just as reusable blocks of code. So modules are just reusable blocks of Terraform code that you can use. And we are now about to call that module. What's so useful about using modules is you write it once and you can call it in multiple places. But for us right now, so we are going to call the module. We are going to give it a name, and then we will say the source. The source is module S3 bucket. And so you give it where the location is. That's what the source is of what I'm calling. And then I'm going to give it the variables that need to be passed inside that module. So we know that we need bucket name, we know environments required, enable a versioning name, and then the prevent destroy. We know that these variables are all required for this module to run. If you don't have those, then it's going to give you an error. It's going to say, oh, this module requires bucket name, and you never defined that. So you need to make sure you're saying that these variables are also going to be called from this module. So the first thing that we're going to call is Terraform init. This sets up your project. It has Terraform go and download the required providers. It's basically Terraform just getting ready. It's like, oh, we're about to do something. So Terraform like, okay, time to get ready. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to write Terraform plan. Now this tells you everything Terraform intends on doing. It's like, hey, these are all the things I plan on creating. Is this okay? Like, so you review the plan. You're like, okay, it's going to create this resource, this resource, this resource. If anything looks weird, this is your time to say something. And then the next thing we're going to do is Terraform apply. So this is where Terraform actually goes and builds out the things that we told it to build. So you'll see that it'll list everything. It'll kind of list it again like plan, and then it'll ask you, is this okay? You type yes if it is okay. So it's like, hey, one last time, this is what I plan on doing. Is this all correct? You say yes, Terraform goes and does its job. And then you'll see whether it's successful or not. So when you're done with all of that, and because it's just a testing environment, you can then go and do your Terraform destroy. This is going to tear everything down. Like, it will make sure it tears everything down safely. So Terraform destroy would be the last thing you would do. And that's why we went and added that one extra resource. So let's recap. Providers connect Terraform to the cloud. Resources define what you will build. Variables make it reusable. Outputs give you the information. Modules keep your code organized. And the Terraform workflow is Terraform init, Terraform plan, Terraform apply, and then Terraform destroy. So I hope this was really helpful to everybody. And if this is confusing, don't worry. The more you practice, the more you do some research, it will honestly get easier. So I put together a DevOps roadmap. It will show you the different skills that you would need in order to get into DevOps, and also different projects you can do and just different resources that might be helpful. It's free. The link is in the description. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, let me know in the comments. If there's something more that you would like to see, if you would want more of a breakdown, any type of feedback is great. So you put that in the comments and just let me know. So subscribe so you can follow my journey as I work to become a DevOps subject matter expert. See y'all in the next video.